All right, let's finalize Vikings game plan with the patented winning formula into the Seattle Seahawks preseason game. Wobby, Vikings insider at Vikings.com, and Ron Johnson from Vikings GameDay Live at Fox 9. Let's begin with building on progress. It's a preseason game, but they won the game. They scored a bunch of points. You had some sacks. There was some progress. The rushing attack, Ron, 7.9 yards per run in a preseason game, but it's progress.
I think the biggest thing was 54 plays. They had 28 called pass plays and 26 called run plays. And so that's the balanced attack Mike Zimmer's been looking for. Stefanski gave it to him this game. And I think the biggest takeaway from that was guys weren't getting touched until 5 yards down the field. The zone running scheme seems to work. The guys are moving in unison, and the running backs are doing perfect reads of where to hit the hole, whether it's front side or back side. And we saw two guys come out the back end with Amir Abdullah and then the long boon run.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it must have been a good night for the offense because you liked how the running game looked, and I loved the pass protection. 0 sacks allowed by the Vikings offensive line. Give credit, too, to the quarterbacks for getting rid of the ball on time. And I think any of us who have been around and watched practices in the offseason program or training camp, you've come away impressed with the defense's pass rush against the Vikings offense. Yet the Vikings offense comes into the Saints game and gives up 0 sacks. That tells me that iron sharpens iron, and that pass protection group is getting good practice against the Vikings defense, and it showed against the Saints. And giving up 0 sacks, to me, when I looked at the box score and the numbers, it was one of the things that really stood out.
And the Boone run referenced by Ron Johnson, fantastic play in a game where there were a lot of fantastic plays. Starting quarterback goes 4 for 4. Maybe my favorite play, speaking about building on progress, veteran quarterback Sean Mannion fades to fire, floats left, takes a hit, and rookie Olabisi Johnson, BC is what we call him in the business, he is able to haul it in, and he had to go up and get a 50-50 ball. How great was that play?
Yeah, and it was a hitch and go. And I like the fact that he was patient. A lot of rookies, knowing that they're running a hitch and go in the red zone, are going to rush the hitch. He literally stopped, looked back at the quarterback, waited for the DB to slip and fall, and then ran by him. And then, yeah, Mannion put the ball up in the air before he had even broke towards the end zone. So I think those two have had the chemistry of working together in one-on-ones, but that showed the patience of a young rookie that's ready for a chance to play.
Defensively, Jalen Holmes, Jaleel Johnson, Hercules Mataafa also had some very shining moments, and they're looking, Wobby, to build on that progress into this next game.
Yeah, and it was a good opportunity for those guys because we had no Shamar Stephen and no Linval Joseph, and that wasn't a surprise. Those guys have not been practicing, and Shamar did return to practice, but obviously hasn't practiced very much. So those guys got great opportunity and a lot of snaps, and I think there's going to be a lot of tape for coaches to work with those guys, and you can generate some improvement now that you have a lot of tape. So some things that they did really well: Jaleel splitting double teams, Jalen Holmes with a sack, Mataafa with a good motor, but some things that they can work on and do better at. So I thought it was a great opportunity for those young guys.
Now from the offense to the defense, and it goes from progress to something that should excite everybody. The anticipated preseason debut of that guy, Dalvin Cook. How do you think he factors in, not only in the preseason, Ron, but the 2019 season?
I mean, he's shiftier. He's a little bit faster. And if you see what Boone did, I mean, imagine Dalvin Cook in that type of scheme. And then I like the fact that every pass and run had a complement. When they ran the delay handoff, there was nobody within 5 yards of the running back. So things like that are really gonna keep a defense on their heels because you don't know what's coming, whether it's pass or run. 2 tight ends, they make it look the same. And now you put Dalvin Cook in there, and we still haven't seen really a true running back screen just yet from Dalvin.
Yeah.
And so as far as the preseason goes in camp, so now we'll get a chance to see Dalvin really in the open field with the screen.
Yeah, I mean, Dalvin in games has been remarkable for the Vikings. Unfortunately, he's only played in 15 games over 2 seasons. So this is a big season for Dalvin, and he's looked really good in training camp and practices, and I think he's ready to go for what we think will be his debut against the Seahawks here preseason week 2. But, I mean, Alexander Madison's touchdown came on a reception. And the Vikings gave up 0 sacks. I think you give the running backs some credit for that as well because they have to pick up blitzers and pass protection. So I'll be curious to see how Dalvin performs in those roles as well as running the ball.
And Ron, I have what could be news for you. I'm just guessing here into the Seattle game rest of the preseason. Probably won't see any Dalvin Cook screens in the preseason. But when we roll against Atlanta, that's when you unveil the big horse, let it out of the barn with those Stefanski-Kubiak screens and watch him roll.
We'll put $1 on that. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. That's what preseason football typically is all about. You generally don't show your very best until the games legitimately count. Now, here in Eagan, Minnesota, at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, specifically the TCO studios, winds of change came blowing through late last week, where the Minnesota Vikings traded a 5th-round pick to the Baltimore Ravens for a kicker named Kaare Vedvik. He's been with the Baltimore Ravens the last couple of off seasons. In preseason games, as you see him here against the Dolphins, he is 11 of 12 on field goals. He also punts, he holds, and he kicks off. So this is a multifaceted specialist.
Yeah, I mean, he's the jack of all trades specialist. I think the key for this is you don't really know where they're going to use him. Is he going to be the punter and the kicker? Is he going to be just the punter and you keep Dan Bailey, who's been one of the most, consistent, statistically one of the best kickers in NFL history? And so this is a challenge now, and you're right. It's a musical chairs type of situation where you see everybody holding, everybody kicking and punting. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting, and they have to get down to 53. So does he add the ability to do both, where you get an extra spot to add an extra D tackle or extra DB, or keep a 6th receiver?
Or you're not keeping 2 specialists. I mean, one guy's not going to punt and kick in the NFL.
He could.
I mean, I'm not saying he can't, but I mean.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing that the team has to figure out. And when this trade happened, Zim was asked at his press conferences, what about this? And are you going to do this? And could you do this? And Zim was like, I don't know. I haven't seen him practice yet. So we kind of have to slow down a little bit and let this thing play out and see what happens. But let's also not forget, I don't think Dan Bailey is necessarily the problem here. I mean, he was 30 of 31 on PATs last year, was 5 for his last 5 on field goals, and by the way, was 4 for 4 on PATs in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like you throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Let's just see what happens. I mean, Dan Bailey has been solid here in the offseason and was obviously very good against New Orleans.
Now, Wabi and I were here for Kaare Vedvik, the new guy's first practice, and okay, you got booming punts on the walkthrough field. You have 62-yard field goals on one of the practice fields off the tee. Crowd goes wild.
Yeah.
There's no disputing when you see this young man of Norwegian descent, he's an athlete.
Oh, yeah.
This is a very athletic specialist, and who knows what you can do with an athlete no matter what spot you put him in.
Yeah, and I say if he is the punter and then Dan Bailey is the kicker, and I can't remember if the Ravens, but I feel like somebody had a regular field goal guy, but then a guy that would come in and make the 60-plus yarders if they needed it. That could be his job too, where he's the punter, and then if it's a 60-plus yard field goal, they bring him in and let him boom it out.
Well, I mean, we've been around coaches enough, and you've obviously been in the game and you've coached. I mean, to have an athlete like that on special teams, it might add a little bit of time for prep. I mean, who knows? Yeah. I mean, coaches are obsessed with uncovering every possibility and being prepared for it. So I don't think that's the sole reason you would trade for Kaare Vedvik or draft Kaare Vedvik, but I mean, it's something to factor in when you're trying to decide what to do.
Yeah, we absolutely are looking for progress each and every game during the preseason. Off just one game against the Saints, Vikings look pretty good offensively and defensively. Let's build on it against Seattle and game plan for the next game next week, which is at home against the Arizona Cardinals. For Wabi and Ron Johnson, I'm Paul Allen. For all of us here at the Vikings Entertainment Network from TCO Studios, that's Vikings Game Plan. Thanks for watching.